If you hear my dog start whining, it's because he's sitting in the cage next to me because he
Mm,
was bad.
yeah, if you hear crying, my 9-month-old is also in a cage right next to me.
Exactly. Treating him like a dog,
Yeah,
like a newborn dog.
right. That's what you're supposed to do. So we made it to episode 10.
Yes, we did. The big double digit,
Yeah.
the big 1-0.
Did I? So I don't know if I told you, but 10 was always my number. Even if I hated doing this, I said I was going to try to make it to 10, and then I could decide if I wanted to keep going.
All right, so you heard it from Charlie. It's been fun, everyone. Last episode.
It's over.
No, but yeah, I agree. Like I figured I actually never said it out loud either, but I kind of had this like let's do 10 episodes and see what we get out of it. So looking back on the long span of time that we've done these 10 episodes in, how do you feel about everything?
I'd say it's been a lot more fun than I was expecting.
Yep.
I don't know if you feel the same way. I find myself frequently like just getting excited at a thought of a conversation we could have, and I have a personal note thing of ideas, and then we have our shared one that just keeps
Right.
infinitely growing, and we will never ever use up all of those.
Yeah, it's not a chore so far.
No, yeah.
It's fun. I mean, every now and again it's kind of like you have to set aside time to do stuff. Like right now, we're recording in the middle of the day, and it's because it's the only time we had available. But it's not like exhausting. Honestly, I'd rather be doing this than the homework I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is our first non-nighthang recording, I think, too.
yep,
Is that yeah.
it's a whole different world here in the daytime.
I feel like the thing that has surprised me the most is the fact that doing one a week hasn't been that big of a deal. Like I thought if we do one every 2 weeks, that's going to be about as much as I could possibly handle as just a sort of side project.
Yeah,
But it hasn't really been, and maybe it's just cuz I still enjoy editing and it hasn't felt too much like a job yet, but it hasn't been that crazy.
yeah, and I actually I've gotten to the point where I can tolerate my own voice. So every time I listen to the final edits, like I don't really have a problem with it anymore, and I
Yeah.
actually forget about stuff that we talked about, and it's like, oh, that's fun. Like I'll find myself like being entertained by our own podcast. So I would hope it's something that other people enjoy too. I mean, obviously they do because we've had enough people and we've been able to see that a couple people or more than a couple people have actually been listening pretty regularly. And there's some surprises I've even had where someone's like, "Hey, I listened to your podcast and it was awesome," and it's like, "Oh, I thought you were just humoring us."
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask you about that. Like, what do you do in those situations? Because what I've found is I get super uncomfortable and then kind of end up being a jerk on accident. Like,
Hmm.
like if I have somebody, especially somebody I'm not expecting it from, say
You
like, "Oh
mean
man, hey, we've been listening to your podcast." My immediate reaction is to like downplay it, like,
and then start
like
cussing them out?
no,
Is that
no,
what you mean by being a jerk?
yeah. No, I mean like I almost it's almost like I say like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty dumb, isn't it?" Like I almost make fun of the fact that people would actually listen to it cuz
Yeah,
like I think I'm attempting to be self-deprecating, but
you're
it's
being
weird.
insulting.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, oh, it's no big deal. I mean, we're only applying to the least common denominator. So.
Right. But I've had that thought like multiple times. I've left a conversation and been like, "Man, I handled that about as poorly as you probably could."
I don't have that problem. I actually I've tended to explain to a couple people that have messaged me or whatever, just been like, oh yeah, like thanks a lot, we're just and I always say this in some form or fashion, but I say like, oh yeah, we're just kind of doing an experiment. Like we figure, we like I'm in marketing, my friend's kind of in like the tech/programming industry. I don't know what you would really call it, and
Software engineer.
there you go. And so like I always say something to that effect and then say like, so we decided to pitch the most hard, and I'm in marketing, and so it's like we just decided to like market the most difficult thing possible, a show with no particular subject.
Yeah.
So and so like it's just kind of an experiment, and I just kind of explain that, and that's my go-to. I don't know why. I tend to over-explain things for no reason that probably no one asked or cared about, but that is what we're doing.
I do,
So,
as much as I act like I don't think it's a big deal for some weird reason when people talk to me, I am extremely excited every time somebody tells me that they listen, though.
right, right. And the fact that we're getting like I thought it was kind of like funny at first where it's like, oh, we got like a British listener or something like that. And it's like, yeah, that might be a one off. But the fact that we keep getting little pop ups in different countries, even though, to be fair, it's not like insane or nothing. We don't have like
Right, right.
hundreds in other countries or nothing like that. But it's still kind of interesting to see that like we have an international presence. Like, uh, aren't we like up to double digits on that yet? Or have we had that
No,
many?
I don't think so. I think there's like 7, maybe
Oh,
like
okay.
4 different countries have some at least one person who seems to be actually subscribed.
Gotcha. It's still interesting though,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
like, and granted, like even though we've done 10 episodes, it's interesting to see like, aren't we like in the? We've got well over. I think we're like a couple hundred downloads by now or something,
Yeah,
right?
we're
Something like
creeping up
that.
on 400,
Oh wow, that's more
but
than I thought.
that's across 10 episodes. So
Yeah, but still, that's not bad for something that doesn't pay any money for advertising. We don't do anything like that. It's just kind of an experiment for fun. Like I feel like that's kind of a micro success. I know other people have probably launched stuff and done immediately a lot better because they're whatever they're doing is more applicable to a specific subject, but for people that are doing absolutely nothing and just going by word of ear, I feel like I feel like 400 downloads on 10 episodes is not bad.
yeah, I don't really have a good metric. I feel like most of the podcasts I listen to are pretty big. And so the
Yeah,
ones of those that you can see numbers on obviously are in a completely different universe.
yeah, that's true. I mean, like you were showing me the Hello Internet group, like their what is it, Patreon or whatever, they get
Oh yeah.
like what, 3,000 an
They get
episode?
so Hello Internet the podcast gets $3,000 or 3,000 something dollars per episode on their
Mhm.
Patreon. So that's just people
Yeah,
who donate.
not including advertisers and
Right, right.
yeah, and then like videos.
His YouTube page, he gets I think it was like $20,000 per video. It's like,
Yeah,
holy cow.
that is not a bad way to make a living. I'm
No
sure some of
kidding.
that goes back into producing stuff, but he's kind of a one man show, isn't he? Like
Yeah,
he doesn't
yeah.
really. That's insane for just
Yeah,
making,
that's a significant number.
especially like, okay, like I know, I get that like informative videos, which is kind of what CPG Grey does, is like is a thing, but I feel like it's a weird thing that became that he can make that much money off of. Like I wasn't expecting that he made that much money.
He has this weird, gigantic following.
Right.
And like, he somehow slid into this giant fan base. I think it's because he's very like Reddit centric and
Ah.
he got in pretty early in the sort of YouTube becoming a legitimate thing game. And his whole thing is viral videos. So it's
Yeah.
like technically yes, they're informative videos, but his whole game is a video within a week needs like 1 million downloads or it's not really successful or plays
Yeah.
or whatever they're called. And that's a pretty rare thing. Most YouTube people are releasing like a weekly video and they're expecting even like the big ones and they're only expecting, a couple 100,000 or something.
Right.
But they release way more often. But his whole like thing is a totally different ball game than almost anybody else. He's got sort of a unique thing going on.
Yeah, it's just a cool way to make a living. Like I would have
Yeah.
never have dreamed. Like could you imagine 20,000 for every like
Well, he lives in central London, so he probably spends most of that on rent.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I mean and he does put a lot of work into each one, but it's still that's just insane.
We have some follow up. We talked about the the movie pass thing last week, and
Yes.
you said you had something on that.
Yeah, I my friend, I'll just say Nick, you know him.
Yeah, he's the one whose wedding you were at a couple episodes ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Even though he's like my best friend, I never imagined that he actually would consistently listen to the podcast because he has a hard enough time like listening to like Audible like books that I suggest him, but maybe that's because I'm suggesting them to him.
yeah. He's
But
also kind of an idiot, right?
right, exactly. So he heard this. um but anyways, we're joking, Nick. But
Dan is.
so yeah. So he texted me this week and he's like, "Hey man, that movie pass sounds amazing." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's like a great idea. Like I don't really understand like how it all works like damaging still, even though we talked about it, like I kind of get it."
And like really quick summary, if you didn't listen to the last episode, this is a subscription that lets you go to movie theaters for like $10 a month. You can see a movie every day in basically any movie theater, right?
Right, right. And so he was like, "That's amazing." And it's interesting because Nick has, as long as I've known him, even if it's a movie that he would want to see, he hates going to the movie theater. And so like I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then like an hour later, I get another message. He goes, "I signed up for it, dog. I'm a movie bro now." It's like, "All right." And I was like, "I thought you didn't like movies." He's like, "Really? It's just the price. So this will get me to the movie theater." He's like, "I just don't like sitting in a dark room and spending money for it." And he's like, "But if it's only $10 a month and I can see unlimited stuff, he's gonna allegedly see more movies now." So my question that I had about that, which we didn't talk about, is how does that movie pass thing work as far as making exceptions for like taking someone? So
Well, so has he used it yet?
I don't know.
Oh,
No,
I
no.
thought you were gonna give us some like feedback on what it's like to use and
No, no, sorry. Like he just messaged me that like yesterday. But one
oh
thing additionally that I was curious about was so I would get the movie pass thing like if I could take my nieces to more movies, that would be awesome, but I don't know how that works. So like can you say I'm going to use this movie pass to get 3 tickets, or are they going to be like, this is only like one person per pass? You get what I'm saying?
yeah, I would assume they would only support one ticket. I mean, it's they say you get one ticket per day.
Oh. What if I get one for like next Friday and buy one ticket per day?
I I
I
doubt
wonder if
that
that
works. I
works.
actually I think the way somebody was telling me, I still haven't been able to get that much good information. Their website's been working. I tried to sign up actually, but it wasn't working the other day. But
Yeah.
somebody was telling me that you have to use the app
Mhm.
and you have to actually be at the theater to buy the ticket.
That's
And you
weird.
like check in on the app to prove that you're the one that's there. So you
Ah.
can't just like, I couldn't buy it and then just let you use it because I'm not seeing a movie today. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
that's kind of a bad idea because, well, at least for me, the theater that I normally go to, the AMC at Street St. Charles, like it has terrible service down there for like any provider because it's
Oh,
like down by the river, and I don't know why, but like I've had different providers while I've been up in this area, and like none of them have good service down
oh, that's
there.
kind of weird.
Yeah, well, like you have to be like right by the door in order to get a couple bars, and it's like 4G service. It's not even the LTE.
Hmm.
So like that would be problematic for me, but I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
I don't know what the details on that are. I mean, when somebody told me that, it made sense because again, they have to have a way to keep you from sharing it with anybody else.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought the bigger issue for me was like I like buying my tickets online now beforehand, especially now that a lot of them have those you actually pick your seat.
Right.
It would kind of I mean, it's one of those things where it's like for that price it might be still worth it, but that would be a big like downside to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. I'll have to consider that because
I figure for $10 it's worth trying
yeah,
for
and
1 month.
honestly like that's one of the things that I do for entertainment is like go with friends or with you or with other people to like go see movies. Well, I guess I would just be going with friends. I don't know who the other people are.
Strangers.
Yeah. Hey guys, want to go see a movie? It's on me. Yeah, so like that's one of my main forms of entertainment around here because there's not much to do outside the city. And like I've been trying to like cut back on like just spending money. I don't even really need to. It's just sort of one of those things where like now that I have my own house and car and everything, like I have this weird like desire to like pay off debt. And so
Yeah, that's
I'm
really weird.
trying
Why would you want to do that?
well, no,
Be a
I'm saying like
responsible adult.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is weird though because I really don't need to. Like for instance, like the little bit of credit stuff that I have out, which isn't terrible or nothing. Like it only has like a minimum payment you have to make per month, but I kind of feel like I'd just like to get all of this gone as quickly as possible. And it's not even a stress thing. It's almost like this weird like I'm getting a high out of paying it off.
Well, the sooner you're paid off, the less you're actually paying on it too. I mean, you're paying interest on it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one big
No, well,
reason.
yeah. I mean, there's a reason. I'm saying like there's not like a need for me to. Like for
Gotcha.
instance, if I had to, like if I was scrounging together money for groceries or something, like I could get by with only paying the minimum per month.
Yeah,
But I feel like and it's not even like a stress thing. It's just like I'm getting a weird kick out of paying stuff off and
it's a good feeling.
so I'm like trying to like be like, "Hey, I can take this extra 25 bucks that I'm probably not going to spend on anything and just put it on my card or something like that or just put it in savings and stuff like that." So, I don't know. It's
Look at you. They grow up so
weird.
fast.
Yeah, you say that, but then something will go wrong with my car this week and that'll all be out the window. So,
So to finish that up, Nick, you need to let us know what it's like using the Movie Pass. I expect some actual follow up on this in the next episode.
yeah, yeah, let's have a Nick's corner without Nick. We'll just
Ooh, I like that.
keep updating the public
No,
on what Nick is
seriously,
doing.
we
We could just keep running
this
like
should
this
be a
ongoing
regular
like
thing.
this week, Nick. We should and just not tell anybody that's not caught up on the
Yeah,
joke
no,
about
I
it. Just be
like
like,
this. Nick's
so this
corner.
week,
What's Nick?
yeah,
What's Nick up to?
what's that old guy been up to?
All right, so that was Nick's corner.
If he's not too stupid to answer, right, Charlie?
I didn't call him stupid. I said he was an idiot.
Did you watch the eclipse this week? It was a
We
big
did.
phenomenon in our part of the world.
Yeah, I took off. Well, I worked from home that day and took a couple hours off. For that. What was it? Like a 2-hour stretch.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole thing. Like me and my little brother, because I had class that day, I think, and so like I got back from class in time to watch it, and I got like the glasses and everything. We just kind of watched it in the yard for about 20 minutes, like whenever
Did
it
you?
was
Were
at
you
the.
guys in the totality?
I think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, it went pretty much complete. Like there was maybe it only lasted for like maybe 10 seconds though. So it sounds weird. That's why I say I think so because it was like so quick wherever we're at. Everyone was saying like that area right there, which is close to my house, is like apparently like a really bad area to watch the eclipse. So
Hmm.
it only lasted for like literally a couple seconds. Once it like completely covered it, and then like immediately you see a sliver of light again. So it
Right.
wasn't
Right.
very long, but I feel like I saw totality.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we got like 2 minutes and 20 seconds of totality. I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was much longer than
But
me.
like, I remember reading an article beforehand that was saying like if you can drive 5 minutes and get 3 seconds of totality versus no seconds of totality, that's worth it. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. In my head, I didn't really comprehend how massively different it would be.
Yeah.
And now I totally get that. Like even a couple seconds before it started, everything was a little dim, but the sun still looked like the sun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was what really surprised me the most. It was still like crazy bright, and then all of a sudden it was just everything was really dark.
Yeah, and then that like half light, if that's what it's called, is like so weird.
Yeah.
Like it was just bizarre. It was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, there was a sunset all around, in all directions.
Right.
That was really cool.
What? Let me ask you this: what did you feel about the eclipse? And this will go into kind of why I wanted to bring this up.
What do you mean? Like,
Did you feel anything? Did you feel one with the universe, all the people around you?
so it's
Did
interesting.
it turn into a big hug session or something?
Leading up to it, everybody was talking about how big of a deal it was and how big traffic was going to be, right?
Right.
And I found myself weirdly very disappointed with how normal traffic was.
Oh yeah.
I was expecting, hurricane evacuation looking highways and everything. And instead it was like there was no difference at all. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe this whole thing's been way overhyped.
Yeah.
And then leading up to it, whenever you could see it in your glasses, I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like this is, maybe it's overhyped, but it was neat.
Yeah.
But whenever the actual eclipse happened, it was so unnatural feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And like in Arnold, because it's Arnold, fireworks started going off and you
Yes.
could hear
Around
people
here.
cheering across like our whole neighborhood. You could hear people clapping and cheering. It's kind of like New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it was the same up here too. I remember hearing the fireworks go off, and I just started cracking up. I was like,
Yeah.
"You gotta be."
And like there was this bizarre feeling of like everything was super unnatural. Like we have woods behind our house and all the crickets started chirping really loud like it was nighttime.
Yeah.
And the sun looked fake. Like nothing about that even looked real.
Yeah.
And like that sort of camaraderie feeling of your whole neighborhood coming together. I have to say, it was just like a really, really cool, interesting experience that as soon as it was over, I found myself wanting to do it again. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense because like I thought it was really cool too. It was kind of like, oh, it's this like neat event that like everyone's kind of, stopping to take part in and stuff like that. And it was really cool to see this like cosmic event take place. But where I kind of drew the line and like I'm different than what I feel like most people are is like, okay, so like I listened to the radio that day, people talking about it like around my work and school and stuff the following days. And one of like the biggest things I kept hearing is people just being like, I don't know, man. It was like I was just like I just felt like so weird, like I was connected to everyone, and it was like this transcendent experience seemed to be not the buzzword, but like that feeling that everyone was describing. And I always at the first couple times I heard it, I just kind of like rolled my eyes, like, okay, all right. And but then like people kept saying that, and I feel like I'm kind of, and maybe if you're the same as me, we're kind of in the minority because like I didn't get that. Like I just kind of was like, oh, this is a really cool like natural phenomenon. But like for instance, someone on the radio was like, yeah, it was like you just realize like how small we are, man. And it was just like I'm just thinking like no, none of that. Like I mean I get it. I get where you're going. It's a cosmic event. You actually stop to consider it for once, but
See, I
I
got
don't
all
know.
like
Like
I got all like warm and fuzzy for science because I'm sitting there looking at my watch like, well, supposedly in 3 seconds it's going to get dark. And then it was just like boom, it got dark and I was like,
yeah.
"Holy cow. I
Yeah.
can't believe like I read about that like 6 months ago that at this exact moment this was going to happen and like, the fact that
Yeah.
all of that was lined up so perfectly. So I
Yeah,
almost
and it
felt like
wasn't
I thought higher of humanity during this than
sure,
smaller
but
of humanity.
but okay, but correct me if I'm wrong then, but to me it was just sort of like cool. Like that's neat. Like it wasn't much more than that. Like
Okay, obviously, I think like, it being a transcendent experience sounds silly, right?
yes.
But it did have, this is going to make me sound really, really nerdy
Just
and
do it.
lame, but the closest thing I could think of to that feeling was when I tried VR.
Oh yeah.
It was like nothing logically was that big of a deal out of it, but it was
Mhm.
like a totally and wholly unique experience that for like hours afterwards I kept thinking about and my mind was just sort of chewing on everything that was happening during it.
Yeah.
But there wasn't actually that much that happened, but it was so weird and different
Right.
that
I just
and
think
I wanted to like jump back in, you know what I'm saying? Like I found myself like, "Oh, when's the next one? I wonder how hard it would be to drive down to Carbondale in 7 years."
now, and not to be too cheesy myself, but like I don't get like that sort of transcendent thing with the eclipse specifically, because while it's definitely like this neat cosmic event that people are taking part in, it's also like we're not doing anything. It's not like humanity came together to do the eclipse. It's just
Oh
like we're
yeah.
all watching this event. But
But I
for
can
me,
understand
like,
it making you feel small, you know.
well,
People say
sure,
that
but
about like looking at mountains and stuff
well,
too.
I was gonna say though, like that makes more sense. I mean, again, like this is where it's sort of hypocritical of me because, like, I kind of get that more with like stars. Like whenever you, it's like a clear night or you're camping or something like that. And even then, I'm not like, oh man, like let's pass around a peace pipe and talk about this. Like I never get to that level. But there have been times where you just like, oh, holy cow, I forget like because we're normally near the city with like light pollution, you're like, "Oh, holy cow, like there's a lot of stars up there." And you realize like how I mean, there is that smallness feeling, and that's fine, but yeah, I don't know. Well, like things like that, like they like bug people, and I think that's why they think it's transcendent because they get like for instance on the radio they were like gives you like this sense of meaning, which seems like
Sense
the
of
opposite.
meaning.
Yeah, which makes
Yeah,
no
that's like the
sense to me.
opposite.
Yeah, yeah, and that was
It
brought
makes
up
me
too.
feel so small and gives me a sense of meaning.
I don't know. Some people even I've heard like when they talk about like that sense of smallness, they talk about like how like it like some people it makes them I guess understandably like scared or whatever because you realize like, oh, holy crap, we're like on a razor's edge type thing. But to
Yeah.
me, like all of that is just kind of like, well, there's not really much I can do about it one way or another. And so it's just sort of reality. Like it doesn't really bug me at all.
See, I get
But
that whenever I watch. Have you ever watched Kurzgesagt videos on YouTube?
no.
They, I think it's in a nutshell in German, which I think they actually changed their name to that. I don't remember. Either way, they do like space videos and stuff, and
Yeah.
a lot of them are like about the heat death of the universe,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
or like how because of physics there are stars that you can see that no human could possibly ever travel to because they're moving farther away from us than
Right.
physics would allow you to, those are the whenever I get those feelings of like I don't know, it's not depression, but you know what I mean? It's like this like,
Yeah.
ooh, we're like this is really weird. Like we're very small and insignificant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I do get that feeling, but I wouldn't describe it as transcendent. It doesn't
Yeah,
stop and
yeah.
make me want to like
Do
express
more
my
with your life.
feelings or anything. Yeah, it's none of that. It's just sort of like, whoa, that's really like it's something I don't typically think about. But then like I can do that and even feel something about it and then kind of move on. Like it's not like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and I get all people are different. I'm not bashing people. If you're out there and you felt like you're connected to the human race and you're gonna go and start a charity tomorrow because of the eclipse, great.
Dan
Like
wants you to
that's
stop right now. That's what he's saying.
no, no.
Don't
I
do
mean
anything with your
that's
life. It's all
wonderful.
meaningless. That's what
I
Dan's
just like
saying.
I'm just saying I can't relate to that feeling. So even though I roll my eyes, it's perfectly fine. I'm not gonna dampen your joy. Just have fun enjoying the things that you enjoy.
Too late.
It's unless it's Suicide Squad, then you're just wrong. That's awful. So that's not something we let slide. Not on the podcast. We take a firm stance against Suicide Squad.
Yes, definitely. So, I just remembered another piece of follow up from the last episode.
Yes.
We talked about CinemaSins and how there
Yeah.
was sort of a little bit of a kerfuffle because they make fun of movies and people who make movies sometimes get sad at them making fun of them. Did you
Right.
did you see their response?
Yeah, and I will say like I'll give them that.
Well, we should say what the response was.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they made a everything wrong with CinemaSins themselves video, and the whole point of it was making fun of themselves. Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah, and I actually liked it. That was good that they did that. Um, it's still I still felt like good job, but I don't understand the like it almost felt like a diversion from the fact that they're just gonna keep doing what they do anyway. That's
Yeah.
not
I mean,
that
it was one of
great.
those where it was like I saw that and I was like, well played. That was,
Yeah,
good job. I
yeah,
watched it and I still felt like I don't think any of this is funny. Like it's funny that this is your response. Like that was a good
right.
response. But the actual jokes and stuff in it, it just I don't know. I think it's just though that it doesn't it's not towards me. Obviously lots of people think they're funny, so
It, I'll tell you what, even though outside this podcast I don't really think much about cinema sins, but within the podcast, I'll tell you what, it actually kind of enrages me a bit more because what it means is that for now on, whenever they do another stupid video that makes no sense and whatever, now people that are fans of it are now going to say, "Hey, but they made this video, so it's
Yeah,
okay."
that's genius.
Yeah, it's genius on their part, but it still doesn't mean anything. They're still terrible.
It's true. It's true.
It's sort of like when a politician is like clearly done something wrong, and then they come out like the next day, and then like trigger each of those words that people were complaining them about. It's kind of like, well, that wasn't.
Right. They
I
do
mean,
their
I'm
public
glad you finally
apology,
said
but
something, but yeah, you know, you're. It doesn't really mean anything when you had to be smacked on the hand to say it. So
right.
that's kind of what it feels like. But yeah,
Yep,
whatever.
I'm with you.
So did you want me to talk about my parking adventures this week at my
Oh,
first week of school?
you have no idea how much I want to hear about your parking adventures, Dan.
Yeah. Okay. So I've had a rough first week of school. I didn't even get onto like Blackboard, which is like the online system through the school, to
When,
look at my
when you say
classes
I had a
until
rough first week of school, for some reason I'm imagining little kindergarten Dan with his
yeah,
oversized backpack walking up to the
wearing
school bus
a ball cap. Yeah.
with a spinner on top.
Gee, mister.
Yeah, our readers might not know. Dan, whenever he was that age, looked freakishly like Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Yes, absolutely. If you dig far enough in my Facebook pictures,
Or
you can
just go
find
to
that
your
too.
family's house and look on the wall.
Yeah, that's true. Um, but yeah, so my first week of school was just kind of all over the place. I made it to class the first day. The second day, a little bit of bad news. My brother's dog, we found out has parvo, and she's actually currently still at the emergency center now.
Oh man.
But I think like she's getting better. Like she wasn't a puppy, so like apparently it's really bad with puppies, and it's still pretty bad for her. But like she didn't eat anything for 3 days and kept throwing up and like was just lethargic and walking around. And we took her in a couple times, and she eventually just stayed there. So that happened Tuesday and it's been going on all week. So like I missed class Tuesday, and then Wednesday was like the pinnacle of the days that made me really mad. And I ended up not going to class that day either because I couldn't find a parking spot at my campus. Now, when I say
Like
that,
at
I'm
all? Anywhere
exaggerating.
on your campus?
Right, I'm exaggerating a little bit because if I wanted to park and I'm not, this is not an exaggeration, a half a mile from class, I could have done that. But it was already like I had spent 30 minutes trying to get around campus to find that spot and only would have had like 15 minutes left of my class by the time I actually walked there.
Man.
And so I ended up just going home. But what happened was, so last year I had 8 a.m. classes, which was miserable. But but there's decent parking there in the morning because no one's there yet. And so this year I was like, okay, I'm getting 9:30 classes, so I don't have to get up this early anymore because I have to get up, shower, eat breakfast, and I need a little like wake up time, so about an hour and a half. And so I took 9:30 classes, and now it looks like I still have to get there at the same point just to get a dang parking spot
Holy
or to
cow.
travel. And not exactly. I mean, I still get about 30, 40 minutes extra than normal, but it's still a pain in the butt. And like part of the problem is that I don't understand is like so they blocked off, I counted about 5 lots that were open to students last year that now aren't. So unless
For
they just
what?
hired no clue. No clue. So unless they just hired about 200 plus teachers on staff, which I doubt because the UM system has they've been bleeding um students, they haven't been gaining amounts, and that includes our campus as well. Like, and so I don't understand why they blocked off these lots. Like specifically, what I used to do is like I would always work out at some point, either before or after class, depending. And so I would just park at the rec center because I pay for parking. And we could park there, but now they've blocked that off to students. So I'm not allowed to park anywhere near the rec center, which is like the hub of where all the buildings for the campus are. And so then they blocked off all the lots around that. And there is a parking garage somewhat near there. But that one's like a pain in the butt to get around in. And so like I went to the other parking garage that's normally always open to students, and they had a sign in front of it that said parking garage full and I was watching cars empty out of it.
But you
And
couldn't. The
my
sign was
question
blocking
is,
the entrance.
yeah, so yes, there were faraway garages and walks that I could have parked. So it's not completely like up in the air. I am exaggerating, but
How long of a walk are
that
we talking
garage,
about? Is this like 10
a
minutes?
half mile. It's anywhere from it depends. Like so it'll take you about, depending on if you get a decent parking spot that's not right by your building but somewhat far away, you can do like a 10-minute walk. Other than that, it'll be 15, 20. Just depending on where you're at and what building you need to get to.
Right.
It all depends on the day and what building you need to get to. Uh, but but yeah, so that garage thing though made me mad because why does that sign exist? Why would you ever block off a parking garage?
Yeah, that seems weird. I mean, it makes sense. Like they do that downtown during baseball games or something, where a garage gets full and they're going to throw a sign up there because it's going to block up traffic when people keep going and trying to. Well, and there you're paying for parking, so obviously,
I get that, but
yeah.
like
So I guess that's
at a
different. But
at a
yeah,
college though, there's no way of telling. Like you
yeah.
can't
No, you're
say
right.
all of these students are going to be here for a few hours because someone could have gotten there at a 7 or 8 o'clock class and now they're leaving. Like that's my problem is it's not a baseball game.
Yeah, because my lot at work, we're right next to Busch Stadium, and so whenever they have like day games, um, the lot will fill up a lot, and so sometimes we'll go out for lunch and you come back because you forgot that there was a game, and it'll
Yeah.
have that sign in front. But for me, always I can drive around the sign and use my pass to get in, and there's always at least one open spot because
Yeah.
somebody inevitably left in the last 10 minutes or whatever, but they've had it blocked off, so nobody who's there for the game is going to fill it up.
Yeah.
So, like, if there where they have dedicated staff, there's always open spots. I would imagine in a college where there's probably not dedicated staff, and if there is, they're college dedicated staff.
Yeah.
So there's probably always spots open.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like driving around to find them. That takes
Right.
so much time because the campus is so busy anyway at that time in the morning. And so I've kind of found out what I'm going to do as a solution. Like there's a far
Are you
away
getting a
lot.
scooter? You should get a scooter.
No. Well, that was another thing. Like they have a shuttle going to the apartment complexes and they have shuttles at the school that they're not using to go to any of the faraway parking lots. Like I remember back whenever I was at Mobap for a short time, like they would actually they were polite enough to like they sent the shuttles to the faraway lots. Like you still had to walk back and forth if you missed a shuttle, but they would at least have that thing going back and forth at all times. They don't do that here at this campus, and it's a much bigger and wealthier campus. So that also made no sense. But I figured out what I'm going to do. There's a far away lot that's pretty far from my classes, but I'm just skipping the sidewalks and I'm cutting straight through the campus, like just a
Whoa,
beeline
you're
right to the
Maverick.
building. Yeah, I'm going through forest and grass and fields to get.
Do you need a machete to cut through the
I'm gonna
the
bring.
woods?
I want to just as like a maybe it'll go viral or something, like just get like full Hobbit attire and like a walking stick and just trek to class. Just so people are like, what is that guy doing? But
Oh
so
man.
that's my solution because I refuse to wake up at the same time to get to class an hour and a half later than what I had last semester. Um because I'm not a morning person. But yeah, so that's kind of the frustration with the whole parking situation on campus. It's just it's insane. That's the bad part about being close to the city is I feel like a lot of parking is like that.
Yeah. Sounds
And
like you need a scooter.
there's no winning. I called the transportation department and they said if you leave so and so a message, she will get back to you. And I said she will because I want her to get back to me. And they're like, oh yeah, and she still hasn't gotten back to me. I was like, because
Do you have to pay for parking? Do you have like a parking
yeah,
pass?
that's what
See,
frustrates me.
that's
It's like I pay for
ridiculous.
money.
Right. Yeah, if you're paying for it, there should be a spot for you.
Yeah, and oh, it was funny. I went into one lot and I was like, holy cow, someone must have just left. I found the spot, and so I pulled in and I get out of my car and then I see a sign that says faculty parking. and I just like lost it. And this like guy who's clearly like a teacher, like he gets out and we had like this moment because like he thought I was like just being like this super annoying student, but I was legitimately asking him like he's walking. I said, are you faculty? And he goes, yeah. And I said, where are we supposed to park? And he goes, hey man, life's tough. And I said, oh no, I know that. But where are we supposed to park? Like for real? Like what lots are open? He goes, oh, okay. And he's like, because he thought I was just being like, hey man, I'm parking here. But I was legitimately just trying to figure out like where am I supposed to go? And
And
it's
he
just
had
funny.
nowhere
His
for you.
his first response was just like, "Hey man, life's hard." It's
Get
like
over it.
it's like no, I get that. I'm not denying that. I understand. I just really need to know where to go. We'll put a bow tie on that. I'm just gonna trek through the fields like a hobbit, and maybe someday, if that goes viral, everyone else can see that on the internet.
There you go. I assume you already have a full Hobbit costume.
Oh, absolutely, down to the ears and the feet.
Yeah, and yeah, you have hairy feet.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna bring like one of those small square coolers with me. Just like have a lunch in the middle of a
Well, see, I was
field.
imagining a knapsack on like a stick. You know.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Stop right before the building in front of a bunch of students. People are like, "Are you okay, man? If I go one step further, this will be the furthest from home I've ever been."
I was waiting for you to do your Elijah Wood voice, but
No, well, it's only for you.
yeah.
All right, I'm done with that. It's making me mad, winding me up, getting upset.
So I just saw yesterday you had a discussion with was that a writer of a book you're reading?
Oh yeah, that was actually really cool. So
Yeah.
so I started reading this book. Well, let me start by saying like I have a really hard time getting into new things, particularly if it's like fantasy or sci-fi. Like I love fantasy
Meaning
and
books.
yeah, like I like fantasy and sci-fi, but whenever I go away from something I know, like Game of Thrones or like Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere or like Lord of the Rings, like Middle Earth. Like it's this weird adjustment where you have to learn all new things because it's a new world. And
Right. And
so,
like that genre has so much
yeah,
sort
there's
of history and
so
depth and everything.
yeah, and so there was actually a couple books that I started recently and actually stopped, which I don't do too often. And they weren't necessarily bad, but they were just kind of like I don't know. I feel like the authors were like kind of cocky with their characters. Like they almost were overconfident in them. I didn't feel like there was enough world building. Like it just kind of threw me into this thing. And which is, to be fair, a legitimate way to world build. It's just not my preferred style. Like I like people talking about like the rivers and this territory and then that place is like this. And these people groups have like these sorts of shields and they act like this. Like that like description and interaction mixed is what I like and stuff like that because it helps me like jump in easier or like to kind of ease me into what the world is like rather than just throw me in and expect me to figure it out type of thing, if that makes any sense. So I quit
Yeah.
a couple books recently. So I started this new one that um there's a website that I follow that's like bestfantasybooks.com and they're actually pretty good. Like the guy is like really into fantasy and very picky and all of the stuff that he has on his like lists are typically like very well esteemed by critics and fans alike. So I decided to try like this one guy's book series because it sounded different. Like a lot of fantasy is like medieval based. It feels very European with like goblins and crap thrown in. And but this was different because what this guy had written was like it's basically a real historical account of 8th century China and like this big rebellion that had taken place that allegedly, according to Wikipedia, it was the biggest, most bloodiest war before World War II in history, if it can be
Quantified.
attributed accurately.
Right.
Yeah. And so that sounded interesting. And it's fantasy in the sense that it's like at some point along the narrative, the author said it's an alternative history and it takes the legends and myths surrounding it as if they're real. So that's the fantasy element.
Ah.
Like, so for instance, if they say the ghost of such and such in some old tale, like then in this world it's real. So it's like this weird hybrid where not only is it not typical like medieval stuff, it's actually like it's like very Chinese centered and it's somewhat historically based and it's like this weird melding of the real world and the fictitious world. But all of that to say, like, so I'm already kind of apprehensive about starting into new worlds. And so I started this book and I'm not too far into it now, but I'm on Goodreads, and so like I'll like update stuff like while I'm reading it. So like I think at like the 5% mark, like I updated it and I was just like this opening is just like incredible writing because it was like sometimes like people are competent writers, but that's very different than ones that like stand out to you. And so I just thought the writing was incredible. So I wrote that comment and I'm still trying to figure out how the
And
author
just so
even
everybody's aware, and me, because I've only barely used it. Goodreads is like like pseudo social network thing where you can rate books as you're reading them. Is
add
that right?
yeah you can make lists, you can there's like a currently reading, want to read, read. You can rate them, leave reviews, you can add create your own lists of stuff, and like there's book clubs on there. And I know I that's fine that you described it just in case people don't know what it is, but there are actually like an enormous amount of people that use it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's like I normally go there rather than Amazon because whereas a popular book on Amazon might have a couple hundred reviews, like that same book on Goodreads will have like a couple 100,000.
Well, I think
So
Amazon is Goodreads is an Amazon product, isn't it?
is it?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was related to Kindle, but it might not be.
I really don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
love it though. So I left this. I updated this like status update, if you will, under this book on Goodreads, just like saying like how incredible the opening of this book was, because it takes a lot to get me like into a new thing. And I'm still not sure how the author found it because there was no hashtags. It doesn't like to my knowledge update the author of the book when someone says something on his book. Um but he somehow found it and he like retweeted it on Twitter and was like, "Yeah, this like early comment of a book reader of one of my books like made me smile because I really wasn't sure like that opening that I wrote was an experiment and I wasn't sure how well it was going to work with the audience." And so he like retweeted and I've gotten like a bunch of comments of like people that are fans of his like telling me like, "Oh yeah, how you liking it?" and like all this different stuff. So,
I just think it's really cool when people who create things interact with their fans.
yeah.
And like I'm used to that in obviously in podcasts, like that's super common, but even in a lot of other like sort of entertainment things. But I don't really see authors doing that as much. And I when I saw that I was like, "Oh man, that seems like really cool."
Yeah, and he's not necessarily small either. Like he's a pretty big author. Like apparently he's established and he's done quite a bit of other stuff that's well received. And I mean, he's no like George R. R. Martin with a TV show adaptation, but he's not small either. He has quite a few followers, and just so
But
people
was Game of Thrones that big before the show? Just out of curiosity.
I really don't know. I know among like fantasy aficionados, it definitely was. So that was sort of hailed as an instant classic whenever those books started being written in the 90s. But yeah, obviously the show just immediately increased
Right.
its vision to the like its what would you say? It
Status
was immediately
as a book
recognizable.
series. It
Yeah.
was way bigger just because of the movies. Whereas like a
Yes.
Harry Potter was huge before the movies even, and then
Yeah.
obviously together they were a
Well,
superpower, but those were
I
big
would
even before.
I would say in its own way, it was as big as Harry Potter in like that adult fantasy genre, but it's not as accessible as Harry Potter
Yeah, that's a
because it's more
smaller
adult.
genre. Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so and by the way, just real quick, just to give that author credit and his book, the book is Under Heaven by Guy Gavriel Kay, and so that's the author. He's apparently pretty big. But yeah, like this particular book has like 10,500 reviews on Goodreads. Anyways, so yeah, that is cool. Like,
Yeah, it was one of those reminders for me of like interacting with the people who consume the thing that you make can make I feel like such a big difference. Not just to the person you're interacting with, but just from everybody even witnessing that interaction happening. It just builds a lot of goodwill.
Yeah, like I get excited even the couple times that we've had people comment on something that we've done. Like on Facebook when we've gotten like discussions going and stuff like that. Like I thought that was a lot of fun and I
Yeah. Oh
immediately
yeah.
jumped in, even if it's just some like stupid silly comment or whatever. But on the other hand, I can also see how some authors or creators rather might get to a point where they don't respond anymore. Like I feel like there's a threshold that once you get big enough, you just can't possibly.
Well, there's a difference between saying they're accessible in the sense that, if you send them something, they'll respond to you, right? Like,
Right.
obviously, even this guy probably he couldn't keep up with that. But
Yeah.
taking time, like a great example is James Gunn, the director.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Obviously, he's not responding to everybody who talks to him because he's probably got millions, probably, of people that follow him and probably thousands a
Right.
day of people trying to get him to talk to him. But the fact that he does just jump in every once in a while and talk to people makes him like way more relatable, I guess. Like you can
Yeah.
understand where he's coming from, and then whenever you watch the stuff he makes, you sort of see it through this lens of who the person is, and it kind of makes it even more fun.
But going back to someone like George R. R. Martin, one of the weird, like, unique scenarios that he's in is he's constantly, like, I think wrongfully berated by his fans of the book series to, like, because he has such a long
Oh, right. Trying to get him to
window
get the
of
books out.
time in between books. So whenever he posts anything on Twitter, like the first 10 comments are, "Hey, no one cares about that. Give us Winds of Winter,"
Yeah.
which is the next book. And
Is that the
so
last book?
that's no. That's the thing is there will
My
be one more
goodness.
after that. So, well, a lot of people are suspecting that maybe he's taking so long on this sixth one and it's being pushed back because he's like secretly just going to like announce at one single day like, "Hey, next week both books are on sale." But
Yeah, I think that's wishful thinking.
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
Half-Life 3. It's
Yeah,
never coming out. Just
right.
get over it.
Right. And so yeah, so like someone like him, it's almost like not worth it to even look at it because it just make you mad. Like I can understand someone saying like I'm not even going to look at the comments because people are at such this weird fever pitch about stupid
Right.
stuff and they're just being a-holes about everything. So,
Well, that's kind of what happened with that game that we brought up a long time ago, the No Man's Sky, where
oh yeah, yeah.
the fever pitch of, like they have built so much hype around it that it got out of control, and they had to kind of go into a complete opposite tactic of just totally shutting down and not talking to anybody because they need to like depress the hype because they couldn't possibly meet it. And that's
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
out for them really well over the last year since they did that.
Right. But I do like it when people reply to me, which honestly has happened more than once. Not necessarily publicly like that, but on like a more minor scale, like I think I've told you this before, like I like reading a lot of like history books too, and there's been a few times where like I've just emailed an author because they'll like have their information in the back of a book or something, or if you can figure out what like university they teach at, you can just email them. And there's been several times like there's actually one author that I still read that he added me on Facebook and has messaged me a couple times, which was like insane. Now, granted, like history authors aren't exactly superstars,
Right, right.
so they're a
Hey,
little bit more accessible.
I remember
But
hearing a letter that you wrote, or a letter, an email that you wrote to a radio station read on air once.
yeah, yeah, that did happen anonymously, but it did
No, no,
happen.
they said your name. They said Dan.
Did they?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
they didn't
not
say my
last
last
name.
name though.
Right, right.
Yeah, and it generated good discussion, which
Yeah,
means I'm a genius. So
I think so.
yeah. But yeah, it's cool to like I agree with you. It is really neat whenever like creators and authors and writers like actually like interact with their public.
Now that we've reached 10 episodes, I think we can finally do the thing that I've been wanting to do basically probably before we even launch the first episode. And that is A-Town shirts.
Yes, absolutely. And why don't you go ahead and tell them what they look like cuz I'm very excited about
Yeah,
this.
so I mean basically it's just the A-Town logo on the front, and then I think on the back it just has the website or something like that.
Yeah, and by the time this episode airs, we should have those up for everyone to look at, correct? On the website?
Yep. So we're using Teespring, which lets you basically create T-shirts and then you can sell them, and they take care of making them and sending the orders out to everybody. So we'll have all the information on our website at atownfm.com/store, or you can just go to the website and we'll have a link there.
Right.
And it's also on Teespring website at teespring.com/atownfm if you want to go directly there for some reason.
And from what you've shown me, they're like really cool. Like even if you're not like crazy, or even if you don't, if you know people that don't listen to the podcast, it's still like a cool shirt because it's like I think they're black. Or are we doing other colors? Or
Yeah,
we're just doing black for now?
there's a bunch of different color options, and there's 4
Okay.
different like shirt size options, or not size options, but type options. So we kind of intentionally made them not necessarily super podcast specific. So it's just the logo with the water tower and it says A Town. So like,
Right.
especially anybody who's from Arnold and wants to support the pure greenness of the water tower, I
Yes.
think there'll be awesome shirts for that. So yeah, if you know people
Right.
that don't listen, I think people would still be interested in getting the shirts anyway.
Right, exactly. And then it will obviously have the address for our podcast on the back. But yeah, it'll the main selling point there is that beautiful ivory, or not ivory, what am I thinking of?
Copper?
You know what I'm saying.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
copper. I'm thinking of the Statue of Liberty. I don't know
Right,
what it
right.
is.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, so
We'll say it's copper.
and the
They
thing
haven't
with this
proven it's
too
not.
is we get like a cut of every shirt that's sold. So like they're not the cheapest shirts in the world, and part of that is because this is also a way to try and support us being able to pay for the hosting and mic setup and different stuff like that.
Yep.
But I set it up with there's 4 different shirt options. So there's like the plain Hanes like plain shirt or whatever, and that's just a regular sort of cotton shirt. And that one's the cheapest one because I wanted it to be something that people could get. And there's not that much of a markup on that one. But if you want to A, support the podcast more, or B, just want a really nice shirt, there's also like a premium shirt option. And there's also 2 women cut premium shirt options as well. And each option has a couple different color choices just because those are the options that they have for those shirts. So definitely look at what all of them are like. But the premium ones are the better materials.
Right. And I'm excited about that because I'm gonna get it and wear that bad boy all over town.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'll probably get more than one because this is something I think I sent you. I think I sent you T-shirt options probably before we even launched the first episode, and you were like, maybe we should wait a little bit on that, which was the smart thing to do. But I just was really excited about it.
And the 100th order
Oh my
gets
gosh.
a free Nick's Corner T-shirt.
If we get 100 orders, I will try to figure that out and we can make that happen because that would be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. It's a promise. You heard it
Oh
here
my gosh.
first. Nick's Corner.
Yeah, sue Dan if that can't happen because it's not possible.
No, I don't. I'll make sure it gets done. If you don't, I'll just send him a white T-shirt with like permanent
There
marker
you
on it
go.
that says
Yeah.
Nick's Corner. So then also another thing that we were wanting to announce that we have open now, if anybody was interested in supporting us, even if it's just like a little bit here and there, is a Patreon account.
Yep. So if you go to our website at atownfm.com/Patreon, or you go to Patreon, which is the opposite, patreon.com/atownfm, you can donate to us basically to help kind of keep this podcast going.
Right. Because at the moment, like my mic setup is a cool little rig that's inside of a basket with pillows surrounding it to insulate it. So
Yes, we
hopefully-
should post a picture of that. Actually,
Yeah.
you know where we should do that? We should do that in the Patreon only members section, where we'll try to post like behind the scenes stuff every once in a while to kind of create an incentive. But mainly it's
Yeah,
there just
we-
for if you want to keep
we-
the podcast going.
we definitely have some stuff that was cut. So that's always stuff that we could figure out.
We could just
down the
load it
road.
up with all of our expletive filled behind the scenes
Right.
content.
Right. It's basically the F word every other word.
Yeah, we're both very, very crass people.
Right, exactly. As you can tell.
Yeah, so
So,
eventually we'll probably do some more interesting fun stuff on there.
and will
But
there
for
be a link to that on the website as well? A Town FM.
yeah, that was what I was saying at the beginning. There'll be a link to our Patreon and a link to our shirt, our store, I guess is what we're
Awesome.
gonna call it. And one thing that we have on there too, one of the like options is a wall of thanks, and so we'll just have on our website a big wall of anybody who wants to, whenever you patron us, anybody who becomes a patron, that's it. If they want to put their name on there, we'll get that, and then we can put you on our website as sort of just a, you know, thanks.
And as always, if anybody, if you like the podcast or you've been listening to it a little bit and you still haven't done this yet, please leave us a good review on iTunes. It definitely helps. And as always, you can find us at our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the website at atownfm.com. No slash or hyphen.
Hello, friends. This is Charlie from the future with a cold. After we recorded this episode asking you, dear listener, to support our podcast, a massive, devastating hurricane hit the Gulf Coast. It doesn't feel right asking for your support whenever there's so many people hurting so close to home. And after talking to Dan, he agreed. So we decided to donate all of our profits of the first week of t-shirt sales to the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross is running shelters and trucking supplies all along the Gulf Coast, getting help to those who need it right now. Even if you don't want a shirt, we'd encourage you to consider supporting them directly or looking for other ways to support the victims of Hurricane Harvey. Also, a quick note about the shirts. Teespring shows a countdown timer on the sales page, which makes it look like it's going to end soon. But that countdown is actually just a countdown for when the next batch of shirts will get printed and shipped, and it will start the countdown over again whenever it reaches 0. I think that's just a sales tactic to get you to feel like you have to purchase right now. Don't fall for their traps.